Across South Africa, parents are desperately looking for ways to tear their children away from the screens and let them rediscover good old-fashioned play. Now, this is according to the Doctor of Psychology of Education, who has turned into a digital health and well-being coach, Dr. Marlena Kruger. She says that this new knowledge has set her on a quest to raise awareness amongst young and old about the dangers of overexposure to technology. And to tell us more about this, Dr. Kruger joins me now via Zoom. Dr. Kruger, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity, and morning to everyone who's listening and who's viewing.
Indeed, it's a great pleasure hosting you on this show, Dr. Kruger. Now, let's start with you explaining to us what screen time addiction is and how prevalent it is in children.
Yes, I think at the end of the day, it is all to do with when children start preferring the screens instead of being in contact, in a real contact with real people. So, I think that's in short, because that's a kind of addiction. When people are getting addicted, they are preferring that screen or drug or alcohol instead of being alive in real time with your partner or your family or your friends. You know, so you are happier in that environment than actually to be in contact with the real world.
Yeah. Now, take us through the impacts and the kind of dangers of overexposure to technology on children's development and how we could mitigate it.
Yes, I think it's already starting with babies, as young as almost newborns, but let us hope they don't get screens in their hands before at any point in time, because it's not recommended for them. But yes, it's already starting there, because we do see that parents are giving us a telephone, for instance, a cell phone, or put them in front of the screen, because it is a nice tech babysitter, and already then they are actually in another world. And so they like it, but it's not good for their brains and their bodies. So from babies, but also then up until 5 to 7 years, it's really the most crucial time for development, for real life development, for real human development. And you must realize that every time that you are putting a child in front of a screen or a young person, it's actually overstimulating the brain. And by overstimulating the brain, it's getting in a hyper-arousal state. And then it's actually, the child, it seems that they are fixed to the screen and they are really loving it. But it's actually not good for them, because then they are getting in this hyper state and their brain just actually can't work with all the input and all the stimulations. And therefore they will have meltdowns. They will be reacting to your interest in strange ways. So keeping in mind that you don't like, you don't want that, because your brain and body needs to develop, especially the first 5 years. It's critical for real life development, developing through the milestones as building blocks and putting the foundations for brain and body development. So when you're in front of a screen, that child, and it's actually applicable to all of us, but nevertheless, let us focus on the children, because they are critically now in front of screens. We must limit that, because otherwise we are actually stealing their development time. And then easily they can become addicted.
You're quite right there, Dr. Kruger. We are stealing that development time. And now break down for us, if you can. I mean, how do we even begin to implement some precautionary measures in our families at home and at schools to prevent the nurturing of what you call the second generation of autistic children?
Yeah, I think step one is limit. And if at all possible, no screen time for babies. That is critically. Because that's already, they must interact with the real world, with you as a person. They must see your eyes, they must see your expressions, your mouth, language development, that the emotional development, interactions, it's all critical. So limit or no screen time at all for babies. Then at the stage, say from 2 to 5 years, limit the screen time to the real interactions that's needed. For instance, if you need to talk to your grandparents or your cousins over the screen, especially in this COVID time now,
yes,
then it's okay. You are managing it and you are in control of that. But don't put a screen, and especially the small screens as well, in front of a child, because they are actually only developing one finger by clicking on the screen, instead of their eyes are also focusing very near focus. So then they are getting squints as well, and their bodies are not moving. So we need to limit it to really the absolute minimum. That's the key. Otherwise, we are making autistic children, we are nurturing them instead of, because they will be diagnosed then with ADHD, because they will mask those symptoms with autistic and other learning and neurological disorders, instead of actually just taking away the screens and let them play, and real imaginative play outside as far as possible, so that they are really developing their brains and bodies and all the connections, so that they are well integrated at the end of the day, and make sure that they are enjoying real life and not screen time.
Okay, and why is it so important, Dr. Kruger, to take the precautionary steps when using different types of technologies? And in the same breath, would you give us your closing pointers into how we could protect kids from dangers of overexposure to technology, especially now that the world is becoming more digital?
Yes, I think when we realize that, as you say, the digital world, it's all connected, but it's disconnecting our humanity, actually, the real life. And therefore, we must also realize that it's all to do with EMF radiation, for instance, although it's low energy, but the electropollution is also setting in. So we must limit our exposures as well, not only for our social and learning and interactions, but also for our protection. So limit the screen time, limit your exposure to radiation, the EMF radiation as well, by switching off Wi-Fi when you're not needing it because it's so comfortable, but rather use cables, network cables, for instance, because then it's also reducing the exposure, because it's also impacting on our neurological system. So if we think of that, have a lot of real play for children available, even if it's in the kitchen. Let them help you with real life tasks, instead of putting them in front of a screen just to have them out of your way. So even if it's plastic things, you don't need a lot of expensive toys. You just need a lot of real life experiences with all their senses, so that they are developing and optimizing the integration of their senses, so that they are becoming real human beings who are enjoying life with their whole person and not just in front of a screen.
Yes.
So it's a really kind of simple, but on the other hand, it's so easy to just put them in front of the screen. So think of real life, how you would like real experiences. And that is with the whole person.
All right. Dr. Kruger, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your thoughts.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. All of the best.
All right. That is the Doctor of Psychology of Education, Digital Health and Wellbeing Coach, Dr. Marlena Kruger. And we've been speaking to her about her quest to raise awareness amongst the young and old about the dangers of overexposure to technology. Your sports news starts right now.